The following is a paid political announcement.
Lifelong Democrat Diana Florence served for 25 years as a Manhattan prosecutor under DA Robert Morgenthau. She put criminals away, stood up for victims, and protected our streets. Now, Diana is challenging failed Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg as an independent because it's time for a DA who fights for our families, not criminals. That's why Diana has won the support of organized labor like the steam fitters, plumbers, and ironworkers, everyday New Yorkers who want a DA they can trust. Manhattan needs a DA who will do the job, prosecute crime. That's Diana Florence. Under Alvin Bragg, crime is up and prosecutions are down. Bragg doesn't prosecute crime. He plays partisan politics. Bragg failed to protect women and failed to protect workers. As a prosecutor, Diana Florence won groundbreaking convictions, fighting against corruption, domestic violence, wage theft, and daily working conditions. She's always been a partner of unions, community groups, and to cops like us. For Manhattan District Attorney, vote for Diana Florence. Diana4DA.com. Paid for by Diana for Manhattan DA.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
Okay, let's bring in best-selling author. Already the book doesn't even come out until Tuesday, but sure enough, we have Eric Trump here. He is the author of Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save the Nation. Eric, thanks for joining. We really appreciate it.
It's great to be on, Joe.
Absolutely. So, you know, I interviewed your dad for my book, and this is after he won, and he was generous enough to give me 45 minutes, which, you know, he works pretty much 23 hours a day, so to get that much time with an incoming president was very cool. And it's funny because my dad asked me before I interviewed him, he said, what is your first question to the president going to be? And I said, well, I think it's pretty obvious. I wanted to know, and you know, you obviously were witness to this, and just I want to get your thoughts as far as what you were going through and feeling. But I said, I want to ask the president, and this is what I did ask him. I said, you know, you're on the ground, you feel blood on your face, Secret Service is on top of you, and for whatever reason, you got up and stood above all of them and yelled, fight, fight, fight. I said, sir, how did you not know there wasn't a second shooter out there, that you were safe enough to do that? What compelled you to do that in the moment? Because I know I would have said, get me the hell out of here. And he said, you know what? I knew my kids were watching. I knew my wife was watching, the country was watching, and the world was watching. He said, there was a stretcher on that stage they wanted me to get onto. And I said, there's no effing way I'm going on that stretcher. I'm going to say fight, 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 because this movement's not going to be stopped. And just every time I bring this up in a speech, that is like the big applause line, as it should be. So my question to you, Eric, is where were you when July 13th, Butler, Pennsylvania happened, and what was going through your head?
You know, Joe, I went to so many of those rallies. I stayed home for that one. As you remember, the RNC was 2 days later. I was a delegate in Florida that was going to make my father, Republican nominee for president of the United States. I had my kids on my lap. I had a 4-year-old and 6-year-old, my 4-year-old daughter, my 6-year-old son. Laura was in the room, and obviously we saw it, unfold on TV. And, I jumped up. My face was probably an inch away from the TV. I was trying to see if he got hit in the chest, right? Obviously, he's wearing a dark color suit. So if he had, if he got hit in the chest or the abdomen, you'd never be able to see the blood because he's wearing a dark color suit. And we were all trying to figure out what the hell happened. Obviously, we saw that he got hit because the blood's flowing down his face and his hands. And, it's a day that I'll never forget. And frankly, I talk a lot about it in the book because I'm pissed off, right? I mean, you mentioned Under Siege on the way in here, and it did go to number one, and I think when it comes out on Tuesday, I think it's going to rattle a lot of people. I was incredibly direct. I'm pissed off about Butler. I mean, there's 1,000 questions that have not been answered about Butler. We know nothing about the shooter. They got into the phone of every single January 6th protester, grandmother who walked through the Capitol, but a guy who tries to blow my father's head off on national TV, a former president of the United States, and somebody who was soon to be president again, based on where the polls were at that point. We have one picture of the guy. The guy got cremated about 4 hours later. I'm pissed off. There's a lot of answers that I think this country needs, and no one's gotten yet. And we better get to the bottom of who he is, what he was doing, who he's talking to. And, I spent a lot of time talking about that in the book. And by the way, that's the mercy of God, because there's no question God was looking down. You don't miss a 130-yard shot with a modern rifle, sitting on a rooftop. I mean, the fact that he turned his head when he did is the only reason he's here with us today.
And Eric, and we're talking to Eric Trump, and that was one chart that he never looked at before. And if you watch his rallies, and obviously you've been to 1,000, to turn his head in that sort of 90-degree motion, that he never really had to do that. Everything was usually more in front of him, or he just obviously was speaking extemporaneously. So yeah, in that exact moment for that to happen, I agree with you. God was looking down. I'm curious, and there are so many questions about that assassination attempt, and you have every right to be pissed. The whole country was, I think, or at least the sane ones. How does a 20-year-old kid like Thomas Crooks get up onto a building with the one line of sight to the president on a stage, able to hide a high-powered rifle behind an air conditioner next to that building, and no one decided to, check the buildings or be on top of the building at the time? We heard from the Secret Service head at the time that, it was too sloped and it was kind of hot up there. Well, that's part of the job, guys. And you're right. Thomas Crooks had multiple phones. He flew a drone over the site a day beforehand. Yep. And then, like Osama bin Laden almost, they felt they had to get rid of the body right away, so they cremated it. And we never hear from the family or anybody again. Of course, the media's memory hold this. So I'm sure I'd love to see more accountability here, but it feels like this thing's been memory hold at this point. And I mean, this is something that obviously to this day we should be investigating.
Sure. And by the way, this is like a tale of two cities, right? I mean, I know every single one aside from obviously, being best friends with my father and loving him to death and running the Trump organization, I know every single agent on that stage. They have all been with me, for years in some capacity, right? The girl that was on that stage, she was with me for 3 years, phenomenal. The two guys at the back, obviously Sean, who runs the Secret Service now. I know and these are the best. I mean, they ran into oncoming fire. The fact that you could leave a rooftop, and I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about the ones that showed up.
They're in charge of the stage, basically, not the perimeter.
Right. Yeah, and they showed up with him to a secure site 3 seconds earlier. I mean, he arrived 5 minutes before he went up on stage, right? So they're not the ones securing the site.
Yep.
The fact that you had Kimberly Cheadle, and I talk about this in the book, right? And I'm a competitive shooter. My entire life has been competitive long-range shooting. It's a big part of who I am. I think you know that as friends. The fact that Kimberly Cheadle is out there saying that the roof had too much slope, whereas the roof where the actual CS guys, the counter snipers were, I mean, had a roof that was exponentially more sloped. And then 3 days later, you had, 75, 80-year-old congressmen walking across the roof like it was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
They lied to us. They lied to us. They screwed up. My father almost lost his head because they screwed up, and it's unacceptable. And we still know nothing about who the person is. We've seen one picture of him. I mean, we know more about a gang member out of Chicago that was deported to Venezuela than we do about the guy who tried to change, the free world. And no, it pisses me off. And honestly, I spend a lot of time in Under Siege talking about this. But Joe, that's the whole concept of this book. They did everything they could to kill my father, to kill our family, to bankrupt us between the Russia smears, right? The dirty dossiers. Me getting calls from the FBI saying, I hear you have secret servers communicating with the Kremlin in the basement of Trump Tower. I mean, every AG, every DA in this country, right? I got 112 subpoenas. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history. The raids on Mar-a-Lago, the raids on Melania's room and Barron's room. I mean, the censorship, right? Taking us off of YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I mean, they wanted to take down our family in any way, shape, or form. And after they tried everything, when nothing else worked, that's when they tried to kill him the first time. That's when they tried to kill him the second time at the golf course. And they put our company, they put our family, they put my father, and they put all of us. I mean, you, me, the entire movement, they put us all under siege as they weaponized the IRS to go after religious institutions, conservative institutions, as they stripped people's, freedom of speech. I mean, they censored all of us. They came after all of us in this country, and it was a siege. It was the greatest siege of all time.
And the greatest comeback of all time. I mean, it must have been, we're talking to Eric Trump, he is the author of Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save the Nation, out Tuesday, but you could buy it now anywhere that you buy books, like Amazon and the like. As far as that second assassination attempt, again, I did a speech at Trump International back in May for the book, and I decided to walk where Ryan Ruth was sitting in a sniper's nest outside of the 6th hole. And it was kind of a known place where you could get a photograph of the president playing golf because you had a clear line of sight to the green. And he was there for more than 12 hours with all of this military equipment, and no one walked the perimeter. I mean, again, that is something that is just you get to the point where it's like, was this intentional? Because that seems like, I'm not a Secret Service agent, you're not, but that's pretty 101 stuff to walk the perimeter of a golf course before the president, or in this case, a presidential candidate, is about to play, and who, by the way, is the most targeted person on the planet.
So, Joe, I've only told this story once before, and I did it at an award when the officers that arrested Ruth were getting their bravery medals. But it was actually my best friend that arrested him. I was north on 95. I was with my friend. He's a Palm Beach County SWAT officer. He got the call that the guy was going north on 95. Hopped in his car. I'm 10 minutes behind him. I'm 5 minutes behind him. We were doing something together. We were driving south on 95. He does a U-turn on 95 across the median, grabs his M4 out of the back of the car. And my best friend, having left me 5 minutes before, was the one that you see on the Fox News video that actually was the guy that arrested Ruth. And I drove right by him. I mean, I was 25 yards away from Ruth. His hands were out the car window. It took every ounce of my energy not to take my truck, go across the median, and rip the guy out of his car. I mean, I was so enraged after what happened, in Butler. And then 8 weeks later to have, to be driving, within 20 yards of a guy, again, his hands out the window at this point. Every rifle in South Florida was pointed at the back of this guy's car at that point, helicopters overhead. But I mean, the guy was 20 yards away from me at the time. And, it's just one of these crazy coincidences in life. But no, I mean, it's how he wasn't seen, how he got to a golf course, how he could have a long gun, 40 yards off of a green. No, I mean, these things are the things that, that you can only imagine how pissed off we are as a family that something like that is allowed to happen. This can't happen. This can't happen. And by the way, Kimberly Cheadle did deny resources. I mean, and I know this because I personally asked. I personally asked for more resources. I personally kept on coming out and saying, listen, they've tried everything they could to destroy my father's life, to take him down. They're going to resort to violence. I said that on Sean Hannity's show, and people kept on saying, Eric, you're an alarmist. And then sure enough, 6 weeks later, Butler happened, and 8 weeks after that, obviously the golf course incident happened. So you can only imagine how pissed off I am as a son and as somebody who loves my father dearly.
Absolutely. We're talking to Eric Trump. Under Siege is the book. And 5 days before Butler, Joe Biden, who was the sitting president at the time, said it was time to put Donald Trump in a bullseye. Like literally a sitting president said that. And that kind of rhetoric that we've seen, we're seeing it this week, for example. Jay Jones, attorney general candidate in Virginia, not only wished death on a political opponent, but also his wife and his young children, 2 and 4 years old, calling them little fascists, says he wanted to piss on the graves of Republican lawmakers after they died, and even said that more cops have to be shot in order for them to change the way they go about doing their business. This person will not drop out of the race, and no Democrat has denounced, well, they've denounced Jay Jones, but they haven't called on him to actually drop out of the race, which is truly incredible. So it's almost like, Eric, a permission slip for violence to the far left is winking a nod like, yeah, you said that stuff, but, while we find it pretty disturbing, you still should probably be the top cop in Virginia. That must piss you off as well.
Well, of course it does, and then I get to go on CNN and you hear about them asking me to take down the rhetoric, and I kind of laugh, right? I've only seen the bullets fly one way, right? Again, between Charlie Kirk, he was a dear friend of all of ours, right? I get to see blood flowing out the front of my buddy's, spewing out the front of my buddy's neck, and obviously what they did to Steve Scalise, what they tried to do to my father twice, what they tried to do to Kavanaugh, the amount of envelopes full of white powder that I've opened up. And Laura's opened up in our kitchen where, white powder goes flying all over the place. I mean, and what they always do, right? The violence in this country is only going one way, and it's crazy. It has to stop. These people, it has to stop. But here's the good news, right? Because this is a really dark conversation. The good news is when you see what happened to Charlie Kirk, right? They thought they could cut the head off the lion, and the exact opposite actually happened. What actually happened is you have every church in this country that's full on a Sunday, right? What actually happened is you had hundreds of thousands of people, showing up to Cardinal Stadium to honor Charlie's life. What actually happened is you've had more Bible sales, in the last month than probably in years. So what's happening is and the Democratic Party is just losing their way. They're losing their footing. They're losing their voice. They have no leadership. They're crazy. People truly believe that they're crazy in this country. They don't identify. They're walking away for so many people, and conservatives in this country are capturing those very people because no one agrees with this. No one agrees with their policy. No one agrees with open borders. No one agrees with, men that are 6'5", my height, swimming in collegiate women's sports.
Yeah.
No one agrees with this stuff. No one agrees with the way Pritzker's running Illinois and Chicago, where you have 70 shootings last week, and my father's trying to help, and they're just denying all requests. People want sanity in the world. Americans are the greatest people in the world. They want sanity, and the Democratic Party is leaving them.
125,000, by the way, to get back to Charlie Kirk, Eric, new chapter request for Turning Point USA. So yeah, you're right. You have no idea what you have unleashed, I believe Erica Kirk said. You did say this was a dark conversation. We usually have more fun conversations. So in the last 60 seconds, I will pivot to that. How many dogs has your wife, Laura, now roped you into having at the house?
Quite a few. I've got 4 dogs running around the house right now, all rescues. Yeah. Laura Trump's love of rescue animals. So, and by the way, I'm the biggest sucker. I go, honey, no more dogs. Like, this is crazy. No more dogs. then she'll bring one home. She's brought home a little mutt beagle named Betty, this little female. And Betty is, she's my little girlfriend. I mean, she goes everywhere with me. And so I become a sucker in 2 seconds. But Laura's more for rescue animals. She's an amazing person. And we love the dogs.
Yeah, loves dogs. And, when I was at Mar-a-Lago for New Year's Eve and I ran into you guys, she's one hell of a singer. I had no idea. I know she's put out videos before, but live, she was even better.
She does everything well. She'll do more pull-ups than any Trump member by far.
Oh, really?
She certainly has better cardio than any Trump. She's a hell of a singer. She's the nicest of all of us. She's the prettiest of all of us. So she's an amazing woman, amazing mom, amazing wife, and I'm incredibly fortunate.
You, like me, over your skis and now kicked your coverage, as they say. Under Trump, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. That is the book. It already is a bestseller. Get them while you can before they sell out, even though I have a feeling they're going to make many more copies. But yes, buy that book today. It is a great read. And again, so many revealing things about Eric Trump, from his early days in the Trump family, obviously, to his dad running for president, and then everything that has happened afterwards. But in the end, happy ending, Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. Eric Trump, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with your book tour. You're going to be exhausted in about 3 weeks. That I can guarantee you.
Thanks so much, Joe.
All right. Thanks, Eric. And this is Joe Concha. This is the Tunnel to Towers Sunday Morning Foundation Show. Back with more in just a moment.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. The following is a paid political announcement.
Lifelong Democrat Diana Florence served for 25 years as a Manhattan prosecutor under DA Robert Morgenthau. She put criminals away, stood up for victims, and protected our streets. Now, Diana is challenging failed Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg as an independent, because it's time for a DA who fights for our families, not criminals. That's why Diana has won the support of organized labor, like the steam fitters, plumbers, and ironworkers, everyday New Yorkers who want a DA they can trust. Manhattan needs a DA who will do the job, prosecute crime. That's Diana Florence. Under Alvin Bragg, crime is up and prosecutions are down. Bragg doesn't prosecute crime. He plays partisan politics. Bragg failed to protect women and failed to protect workers. As a prosecutor, Diana Florence won groundbreaking convictions, fighting against corruption, domestic violence, wage theft, and deadly working conditions. She's always been a partner of unions, community groups, and to cops like us. For Manhattan District Attorney, vote for Diana Florence. Diana4DA.com. Paid for by Diana for Manhattan DA.